What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Taking the Pin. This week, we've got lots to get through, as always. Big, epic moments in wrestling to discuss, as well as some Elimination Chamber predictions. And before we get those going, I'll introduce you to my co-host, Bragster. How are you doing?
I'm good.
It doesn't matter how you're doing! It doesn't matter! I'm ripping up the script this week, and we are starting off hot with the biggest topic of the week being Rock returning to Smackdown with Cody Rhodes, and I have royally got him there. Baxter, how are you doing today, sir?
Oh, I don't even want to give you an answer anymore. I'm fine.
Good.
Yeah. I mean, you completely. I was gonna go straight in with the I'm all right. Yeah, you know, bug going around this. No, stop it. No, I don't even care how you think. Let's just go into the wrestling.
Good. Right.
You've ruined it.
So we are going to do things a little bit differently this week. It feels like there's only one thing to really talk about SmackDown throughout that entire show. So we're not going to do a full SmackDown review. We will review the other shows, but we'll start with, of course,
R-Truth, obviously, in the tag match and everything.
And having John Cena almost pin his opposition and counting him in.
Yeah, the biggest story of the week.
Absolutely. Right? No, of course, we jest. It's, of course, The Rock returning to SmackDown. Got announced on the Thursday, and it led to lots of speculation about what was going to happen. Was he just coming back for a little bit of a promo of, the next Mania? Was he going to actually be doing anything storyline-wise? Turns out, it was both. So, The Rock comes back to a snazzy intro package and to some interesting music, New Orleans themed, which instantly gave the game away as to what he was going to announce. And of course, he started out with the announcement of New Orleans is going to be hosting WrestleMania 42, which wasn't a surprise to anyone because it had long been rumoured. And I am now down to the final two big pay-per-views to get my prediction in for London hosting one of them next year. Fingers crossed it's SummerSlam, because God only knows what a London in Survivor Series would look like. Anyhow.
I would love that so much.
I mean, I would love that as well, but it would be cold as all hell. Anyway, so with that being said, Rock comes out, announces WrestleMania 42, and then does what Rock tends to do in his promos when he gets given an unlimited amount of time, and tends to ramble on about a few things. I think at one point thanks the crowd for Moana 2 getting over $1 billion at the box office. Was a bit strange, really. Again, I don't mind The Rock having time for promos and being able to do his thing, but this kind of seemed a bit elongated. And then eventually he got to the sort of the matter of the whole thing and asked Cody to come out. And Cody came out to his usual pomp and circumstance, got the woes from the crowd, and The Rock's looking very happy to see his new best friend Cody and looking cheerful and having a big bright smile on his face. And then Rock's does his usual of, thanking Cody for carrying the company over the past year, being a true champion to the masses, and really being a stand-up guy like we know Cody to be over the past year or so, or really since he's been back in the company. And then Rock gets down to the nitty-gritty, and he says, look, I want you to be my champion. I want you to represent me. I want you to basically be my champion, carry that belt for me, and I will give you everything that you could have ever possibly wanted out of your career. You're sitting at around a couple million Instagram followers. I have tens of millions Instagram followers. I am the most followed man in America on Instagram. Really drawing on the fact that Instagram apparently is the be-all and end-all for all wrestlers, apparently. But hey, the Rock's gonna rock. And then when I thought we were kind of losing it a little bit, we got to the very end of the promo, and The Rock kind of said, The Rock said, the thing that I want most of all is that. And he seemed to be pointing at the title, and Cody started to smirk, doing the usual Cody thing, and was like, oh, so this is what it's all about. You want the belt. That you want me to essentially give you the belt. That's what you want. And you'll give me everything I've ever wanted. And he's like, no, Cody. I want your soul. And then put his hand on his face like a loving partner would, and then left. And again, wasn't a big fan of the segment overall. I think the very last bit kind of saved it a little bit in terms of building curiosity as to what might happen next. I do think they were trying to build off to this big payoff right at the end, and it just kind of, the way the preceding 3/4 of the segment happened, it didn't really pay off. But yeah, it kind of, it didn't really work. And then the aftermath of the promo and the segment when The Rock did his post Smackdown conference and saying that me and Cody have this really interesting dynamic where we don't necessarily have to have a wrestling match for a payoff. And I'm sitting there, like a lot of people are probably sitting there watching this going, do you understand what wrestling is? The name's in the title. Payoff requires a match of some kind or some form of physical interaction for there to be the build-up for the story required. Now, of course, you could have maybe someone represent The Rock, or you could have, the Bloodline be The Rock's representatives in a match, or something along those lines, where The Rock's maybe the manager in a match, and maybe you get that way, and that's fair enough. But the way The Rock made that sound was very much as if there isn't going to be some form of confrontation for them two.
Yeah.
And again, I'm flying it all the way back to the Raw after Mania, where it was very much teased that when The Rock came back, that was where we were going. Now, of course, there's the big Roman match that everyone's clamoring for, and there's a few other, people that they could go with. But it just fell a bit flat, I think, from the hype. And yeah, what were your thoughts on the segment as a whole, Bragster?
I get your point. Like as you said, it was all building to that ending of the segment. The entire point of it was to go for that line of "I want your soul," to then obviously lead to what's going to happen at Elimination Chamber. And they're going to be a whole segment, which I presume, knowing The Rock and Cody Rhodes, that's the reason why there's less matches on the Chamber card, is because this is going to last 20 minutes. And it's going to be one big granddaddy of a segment with many, many layers. It wouldn't surprise me if there are twists and turns that entire segment. But I think it's interesting, more so in the sense of what's come after and the hype from wrestling fans and the dirt sheets and all the reports coming out afterwards. It is thrown Mania out of the window completely. Everyone thought we knew what was happening at Mania or had maybe one or two ideas of what could happen. Congratulations to Brie. If you wanted to confuse every single wrestling fan, you've done it. You've completely done it. And we don't know what's happening. For better or for worse, whatever you think on that scale, we know nothing heading into Elimination Chamber. It has also blown the Elimination Chamber match completely out the window. Because, as you pointed out, wrestling usually finishes in the ring. So therefore, if they are building to a Rock-Cody match, then what the hell is the Chamber match for? Like, what's going on there? And if, then they do have a match, are they going to do what they did last year, a night one, night two scenario, where Cody wrestles both nights again? Are they going to do a situation where The Rock inserts himself into the Elimination Chamber and win it somehow? Or are they going to do what The Rock is saying and not do a match, and that actually the culmination of this story happens, their story happens at the Chamber, and Cody goes on to continue his story, and The Rock continues to have his story, and their ending happens at the Chamber? I don't know. No one really knows. And I mean, that's part of the excitement and also the issue, in the sense of the segment itself didn't really blow minds. It's not like the classic Bloodline segments where I am going to, in the future, rewatch all those different segments, whether that be Jay's turn, whether that be the Sammy court scene, whatever it may be, all of these different segments culminating together, that we've known to be cinema this entire time. This wasn't cinema. This wasn't it. This wasn't the big granddaddy of a segment that is going to be talked about for years to come.
Yep.
That it's just not going to be that. So ultimately, the point they got across and the hype they wanted, it's there. It's 100% there. No one can deny that. But in terms of the actual quality of the segment that we had, I don't think hit the heights that maybe they wanted.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that my concern is that if they don't hit on Saturday with that segment, then it's kind of been a bit of a waste of what they could have had, or what they could have built to elsewhere and used that time for.
Yeah.
But we've seen it where maybe something didn't start out that great. If it's given the chance that it could maybe pick up a bit of steam and go somewhere, so we'll see. And again, it could well be that leads to additional wrinkles to the Chamber match. Yeah. It could be they could even end the Chamber pay-per-view with that if it leads to something big at the end, and it just, I do have a left field theory, but I'll get to it when we get to the Chamber predictions.
Yeah, I've got many different ideas in my head of what's going around. What I will do is I'll leave mine until then, but I'll throw out a couple now that I've seen online.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of which, just so we can discuss them, because I feel like there are many different avenues this could go down.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to cover the ones that I've kind of seen online and I think that could be very interesting. One of which, depending on who you believe that may be, is that Cody won't sell his soul, someone else will.
Mm-hmm.
And that leads them to win the Elimination Chamber match and go on to face Cody Rhodes. That earlier in the night, Cody says no. The Rock finds someone backstage. You fight, maybe comes out of their pod last, something like that leads to them winning the match, that then it gets announced afterwards that they had aid in some way, shape, or form, or there's an actual interference that aids the match in some way, shape, or form. That is theory number one that I've seen online. Theory number two is that somehow, some way, this ends up back at Roman and Cody. Roman and The Rock through this entire thing. And having that thread of Punk possibly like selling his soul or in some way, shape, or form getting to that main event and facing Cody. And then you have the favor be that Roman takes The Rock off of his hand, something along those lines, right? That there is some combination involving those four people where the favor involves taking The Rock out and getting The Rock out of the way so Punk can have his moment, etc. Like, for example, Punk maybe wins it, The Rock tries to convince him to give up the spot for him, etc., etc. There are other options where Cody does sell his soul, and therefore you get the ultimate match of a heel Cody Rhodes, corporate Cody, versus John Cena, with the entire story revolving around the fact that, as Punk mentioned in his promo, no one is Superman. Apart from one man who's never sold his soul, not once, in all of his title reigns, not once sold his soul, and that is John Cena. Therefore, creating the ultimate two different stories. The ultra babyface that when the going got tough sold his soul, and the other one who never would. Is a very interesting story to tell. So there are many different avenues they can go down, and I've barely touched the surface. There are people theorizing that Drew McIntyre could sell his soul to The Rock because The Rock already owes him one, and there's the whole thing of The Rock or him being gifted swords, this, that, and the other. that entire thing can happen where someone completely left field wins it in Drew McIntyre, and actually we end up with something like Punk versus, you end up with the Punk Seth Roman match, and you end up with Logan Paul versus John Cena, and Damian Priest ends up in the mid-card scene.
Yeah.
It all fits into place. There are many different options in this. As I said, for better or for worse, it has made Elimination Chamber incredibly unpredictable. But as you said, that payoff has to be there now.
Yeah.
In the fact of if The Rock had just turned up and done his thing, fine.
Yeah.
But there's that element of the payoff has to be good, because I don't think it's going to result in a Cody versus Rock match. I really do believe The Rock is telling the truth when he says it's not going to.
Yeah.
Part of that was actually what I saw on Twitter today, which was that they're not going to have The Rock lose before facing Roman, because obviously The Rock returned last year to face Roman, and then the fans made the plans change.
Mm-hmm.
But the end goal would have never have changed, which is Rock Roman. And they're never going to have, and they're not going to have The Rock lose before facing Roman, because that makes Roman's win feel, it has less magnitude to it. Because, you've beaten the final boss who's already lost, rather than I've beaten the final boss type thing.
Yeah.
And that moment wouldn't matter as much if you lost to Cody beforehand. So I do believe that bit, and that's then what's making it interesting, is because that's not an option, then what is the option? What is actually happening?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of pointless me going through that, because you've kind of touched upon every single scenario I've had in my head, so there's no point. But I think it speaks to the fact that everything is on the table here. This is, you've got the Cody turn, you've got Cody not turning and just rejecting it, and then it's basically whoever's in the chamber. You've got backhand deals with the devil himself, all those shenanigans. I mean, one of the many billions of theories, like everyone else has had, is you could have said person get to the Mania main event, and then you have almost a flashback to that WrestleMania 17 event when Austin shook the hand of Vince, and you have the guy shake the hand with The Rock, and then they get the title, and then it's Cody's broken and defeated, and the heel turn continues for whoever has taken the deal. But yeah,
you could literally have it that I didn't even think of this until now, the Austin way.
Yeah.
Where you go into that main event thinking, let's say it's babyface versus babyface, and he does win by nefarious means.
Yeah.
He doesn't sell his soul now. He sells his soul at Mania when it matters most.
Yeah.
And then, as you said, shakes the hand of the devil in front of the entire world, and your moment at the end of Mania is The Rock holding up Cody Rhodes' hand.
Yeah.
Or it could, obviously, as you said, be anyone else in that position. But I didn't even think of that possibility.
Yeah. That's what I mean, though. Like, there's so many different options on the table. Like, it's genuinely... The segment itself wasn't great, but I think the intrigue it's created for Saturday and potentially Friday, depending on how what they approach it with, could really open the door. So, yeah. Hopefully they put some more restraints on the time that Rock's allowed to operate in, because that, just to make it a little bit tighter. But you were going to say something there, Bragster. I'll let you finish off there.
It was just it was something that came to mind while I was rambling on earlier, because then I'm going to ramble on again, because of course I do. But it then begs the question: with all of this that has happened, why in the world did Solo Sikoa spike Cody Rhodes? Because we haven't really had much of a follow-up to that, to the extent of, where my sort of thinking was, that's the chamber match for Cody, because of course it is, because you've got Mania on the way. Yeah, that's not going to be the Mania match. We've got the chamber for that. So then what was the point of that? Or is that tied in? Is it, as you said earlier, is the bloodline actually working for The Rock, and this is all a big swerve to the grander plan per se?
Yeah,
it's like, that's the part that is partly confusing me. Like, there's so many loose ends then I feel like they have to either start tying up or tie them completely, because there are too many of them going into Saturday, where if we don't come out of Saturday knowing what Mania is, knowing that it's this person versus Cody Rhodes, knowing the rough road, we might not know every speed bump along the way, but we know who it is, we know what's happening, and we can start promoting the show. We can start getting excited as fans. We can start theorizing who's going to win and who's going to lose. If we don't come out of Saturday feeling like that, there is severe danger of actually this backfiring, that the intrigue that it causes completely retracts and everyone then gets out of the moment completely, where we're like, well, we've got, there are some people who don't care about Jay versus Gunther.
Yeah.
To which, if you don't care about Jay versus Gunther, and there are a lot of people who don't care about Charlotte Flair in her match and don't care about that, and you ruin this one, you're really running out of options for people to get hyped about.
Yeah.
Where, the people can excuse one or two of maybe the title matches that just not being their cup of tea.
Yeah.
If there is one universal match that everyone's excited for, if we do not come out of this show with that, we're in dangerous territory of this going from possibly being one of the best Manias to actually being quite a concern.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny you say that, actually, because I was thinking about that the other day, of getting into sort of end of December, beginning of January territory. I was thinking this could be one of the best Manias we ever have. If they do it right, it could be one of the best Manias we ever have. And we're at a knife's edge here where it could go one way or the other. I'm gonna stick with what I've seen over the past 2 or 3 years under Triple H's stewardship and give him the benefit of the doubt. And even if something doesn't quite go right at Chamber, they still have enough time to turn that round. There's still 6 weeks of build from Chamber onwards, so it's not like they can't magic or book their way out of it. Like, you can always get yourself out of it. Yes, it could be by some less than stellar booking or shenanigans or whatever, but there is still a way out of it. So I'm willing to give it its chance, like I said before, and we'll see what happens. So we'll leave it there for The Rock and Cody, and we'll see what comes on Saturday. And now we'll get into the weekly review, which is not a 4-show review. It's just a 3-show review, so it should be a little bit quicker for everybody. I highly doubt it will be, but we'll get into it. So, with that being said, we'll start, of course, with AEW Dynamite, and Bragster, take us away.
Yeah, this was quite a packed Dynamite, actually. We kicked off in brilliant fashion. This was the MJF Hangman Adam Page face-off.
Yeah,
this got like 20 minutes. Like, this is how you start off a Dynamite and go from having no match at Revolution between these two and barely any build to one of the matches I'm most excited for on the pay-per-view. This is how you quick build a match between two of your biggest stars.
Yeah.
So we just have them both come out, and immediately the commentators put over the fact that these two cannot touch each other. If they touch each other, no match. Not happening, not even remotely on the table. They will both miss Revolution if they end up touching each other. So it means that you can sort of sit back, relax, and not expect, any nefarious means. MJF says stuff like, think of your favorite wrestler. I've beaten them, while putting over the fact that he is better than you and you know it. He plays off the history between the two. MJF explains every match they have had, why they had it, who won. And it wasn't boring, it was compelling, because he was telling the story of how Hangman's been handing everything and MJF's had to earn everything. Hangman came into the company and was handed everything on a silver platter. He was put immediately to the top of the card, from being a jobber elsewhere to being put to the very top. MJF was Cody's lackey. That's like... That was the entire story that he was telling, was that every single moment in the career, Hangman's been given it, MJF's had to earn it. And it was so good. Then you had Hangman saying that MJF hasn't earned the respect of the fans, and that's why he's so angry. That's why he sounds so angry all the time. This was part of luckily they saved it past this point, because I think this was not a good point from Hangman, bearing in mind that I was in Wembley Stadium last year, in 2023 with him versus Adam Cole, and I know full damn well that entire stadium was singing MJF's name and singing his theme. So he has had the respect of the fans before. So I don't think that line quite worked. I feel like if I'm going to praise the good bits, I need to also balance it out with the bits that I didn't quite agree on. MJF reminded Hangman of all the horrible things that he's done, and was just like, Hangman, do you even love yourself? Can you even contend with who you are now? It was just so well done. And then MJF criticizes Christopher Daniels, basically says that, you even retired a low-life veteran, finally ended his career after, he wouldn't give up being in the ring. And Hangman snaps, basically goes that, he wishes that didn't happen, and ultimately he wishes he could rip out his own spine and give it to Christopher Daniels just to see him wrestle one more match, and told him to stop disrespecting him. This was a full-blown face turn in this for Hangman. Hangman basically says that he's never lied to the fans. The reason why the fans keep forgiving him for all the nasty things that he does and don't forgive MJF is because Hangman's never lied. He might have done horrible things, but he's never lied. MJF has. And basically, in the end, MJF spits in the face of Hangman, and we end up with them, pulling apart sort of moment where you're thinking, oh, Hangman's going to hit him. In the end, he just destroys the entirety of the security team. And then as he goes to turn around and hit someone else, Christopher Daniels is there.
Yeah.
He stops, and you get this moment where he goes, Christopher Daniels is like, this is the man I've tried to bring out of you. Usually I wouldn't last this long on one segment, but by God was this brilliant. This is one of my favorite segments of the week. This just was from start to finish exactly what you want. I am absolutely hyped for this match, more than just the fact of these two are going to have a great match. I care about the story. I don't know what they're going to do, but I care. So, yeah, really, really good stuff. Can't wait to see what they do going forward. Can't wait for that match at Revolution. Chef's kiss. Brilliant
I actually watched that segment.
Really?
Yeah, because I saw it. It came up on my YouTube feed, like AEW stuff usually does. And there's not usually many that kind of get me interested. And I saw it was like a 20-minute segment. I was like, oh, I'll give this a watch. I'll give it a chance. And I think I watched it yesterday. I was just like, yeah, that's like, even I'm interested in watching that match in itself. Because, again, fans of both guys, so seeing them interact and have that sort of chemistry together, even on the microphone, was quite good. And again, MGF being MGF and spitting him on at the end, and it was pretty good. Chef's kiss, as you say.
Yeah, it did everything that face-off needed to do. When it was announced last week, I was like, I'm excited for that. Did not expect it to be this good. I should have done, because of these two guys are amazing and two of the top guys in the company. But I did not expect them to manage to turn from just bubbling hype to complete off the scale, possibly one of my most hype matches on the card for Revolution, probably second on my list.
Yeah.
Behind a match we're going to speak about later, but judging by my last few weeks, you're going to know which match that is.
Potentially.
So yeah, brilliant stuff. Then we had the Patriarchy versus the Ops. Now the Ops is Samoa Joe, Shibata, and Hook. As you can imagine, the Ops won. They now have their own theme and everything. I wish I cared more than I do. It's really sad, but it's a throwaway segment for me. Hangman and MJF was made official. Then we had a street fight between Powerhouse Hobbs and Big Bill. Weird one with this street fight. It was basically a last man standing match because it was to a count of 10. So apparently that's some street fights end in pins and some end in last man standing match type ordeals. I didn't care either way because it was a great match. It was brutal. To name a few weapons: a chair, a wrench, a monitor, a trash can, bricks, barbed wire tables, and a stop sign. just to name a few. Hobbs was bleeding early, and you could see Big Bill, like the blood on Big Bill's chest. Really good stuff. Really, like these two have really good chemistry of understanding that they're both big guys, but also still putting in enough character work where you can really see them come out of their shell. I think this has been a feud that has obviously Powerhouse Hobbs was elevated at the start of the year, but I think this has helped elevate Big Bill to a much more dangerous level and put him much higher up the card than he ever has been. And that's really good. And that is even despite the fact that Hobbs ended up beating him in this match after putting Big Bill through the table, barbed wire table. But what I liked about this, and I was a bit tentative at the start, but what I ended up liking was Big Bill wasn't knocked out. He got put through this barbed wire table. He wasn't knocked out. He got trapped in the barbed wire. That's why he couldn't get out. He couldn't unjank his arm and his legs from the barbed wire, so therefore couldn't get up to beat the count.
Yeah.
I really liked that, again, because it made Big Bill feel strong, even in defeat. I'm still looking forward to what the next Big Bill match is after this. So, really, really, really good stuff. Great match overall. Powerhouse Hobbs with the win. Then we go to Timeless Tony Storm, who is just
Brax's favorite segment of the week. Everybody,
I love the fact that my top thing was this gimmick is gold. It's brilliant. Whoever came up with this, give all the awards. She basically said that she beat Mariah May with a small package. Yep, she made that joke. My next thing was more sexual jokes, because there was plenty of them. She spoke about a small package, how because it made her win the match, it resulted in her actually having a big package, and that she's going to have an even bigger package waiting for Mariah May wherever their next match is. It just, honestly, I can't do it justice how good these jokes paid off. It sounds corny coming out of my mouth. At a time as Tony Storm's, it sounds brilliant. She, at one point, quickly plugs the fact that she's in the Queen of the Ring film. And she does so by speaking to the camera, straight to the hard cam, going, and now for a quick plug. Turns her head to a side camera, plugs, turns her head back, and carries on with her promo. Almost like it was an advert. It was just genius. And she basically calls herself God. At the end of this is the last thing. I am like God, and basically whoever the next comer is, come and find me and come and have a taste of God. Brilliant stuff. Really enjoyed it. Then John Moxley comes out. He cuts a very Roman promo. I think this was on purpose. Very much like, this is my ring. These are my people. The one that gets spread around Twitter every bloody week. From Roman Moxley, obviously they're very good friends, so it's very much a clear reference. Says he owns everything. Jay White interrupts. Cope comes out. He brings out my favorite weapon, Spike. My words were, Cope uses Spike in my notes, because it's the worst weapon. I've ranted about it before. And then Cope runs him up the ramp, grabs the mic and goes, you were wrong. These aren't your people. They're my people. And that's the end of the segment. Then we go to a Statlander versus Megan Bayne match. Megan Bayne was on top throughout. This was a very dominant performance. But when Statlander started to get back into it, Penelope Ford interfered, leading to Megan Bayne winning. This leads to the worst run-in I've ever seen in professional wrestling. The worst one. Because Thunder Rosa, and I love Thunder Rosa, comes down with a chair. She faces Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford. Doesn't hit them with the chair, but Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford do not leave the ring, and it creates the most awkward interaction where no one's leaving the ring, but no one's getting hit with a chair. Then Penelope Ford tries to take the chair off of Thunder Rosa, but it's like, just hit them with the chair. And then eventually, after a lot of arguing for about a minute, it felt longer. Honestly, it felt like 5 minutes how long this went on for. And eventually they leave the ring, and Thunder Rosa then throws the chair at them, and then they leave. It was, honestly, if you get a moment to watch one of the worst wrestling segments of the week, Watch that one. It's awful.
That's the segment in question where there's been reports of frustration from the AEW guys, hasn't there? That there's not been enough meetings before the shows to go through this sort of things and organize it, and that's kind of highlighted that, which isn't a great look for obviously Tony Khan, but it kind of obviously gives everyone the impression that you need to be a bit more organized to get these things right. You can't just say, right, this is what we're going to do, and then just go and do it.
Yeah, I think especially when Megan Bain's very new to the roster, and to put Megan Bain, who they've been putting over really like a lot, in a segment that is so bad, it immediately drops the hype for her. Despite the fact that it was Thunder Rosa that looked like the idiot, it still, in association, makes me frustrated with Megan Bain, despite the fact that it's Thunder Rosa that looks like the idiot in this segment. I'm not saying it's Thunder Rosa's fault, but she's the one that on screen-wise, character-wise, looks like the idiot.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't work. I did see some reports and some suggestions that this was a possible rib almost on Thunder Rosa to almost embarrass her. I don't believe that for a second, because AEW have been very hot on Thunder Rosa for a long time.
Yeah.
Have given her the title and everything, so I just don't believe that.
That doesn't make sense though. Like, why? Like, fair enough if you're doing something in the background, like behind the cameras, if you're trying to prove a point or whatever, but you're shooting yourself in the foot by doing something like that, because it could blow up in your face and cause. I mean, AEW has had enough drama to last a lifetime, even in its first 5 years. Like, there's no point doing things like that to make it even worse in the background. Like, it's just pointless.
No, exactly. So yeah, I'm. It is really bad, and I hope for all wrestlers involved that they make it work and we forget about this. But like, I've seen this go around Twitter for days afterwards. I only managed to catch up because of work, etc. Over, I think it was on Sunday, actually, I managed to catch up.
Yeah.
So it's very recent in my head. It was still trending on Twitter and still going around my Twitter at that time. That's how bad this segment was. We had Smackdown with The Rock after this.
Yeah.
And yet still, I had Thunder Rosa walking around with a chair on my feed. Like, it was not, it wasn't great. It's frustrating, really, really frustrating, especially when they're trying to build the women's division. The women's division is so good at the moment. Like, this was very frustrating for me. Then we've got a Ricochet promo, which was a very good promo. Then you hear Swerve's music. Prince Nana comes out, no dancing, very serious. Basically begs Ricochet for the cloak, the embassy cloak. You know, this is that it's so synonymous with Prince Nana and literally Ricochet just goes, "You're not having it back. You've got to take it from me." And like, Prince Nana's like, "I'm not going to do that." And then he's like, "We'll go and cry about it," and leaves. And it's so, like, Ricochet's character work has been so good. Like, in AEW, it's been incredibly impressive. I'm very hot on Ricochet. I've always liked him in the ring, but I'm actually starting to care about him outside the ring as well. This character work's been brilliant. The storyline's been brilliant. Prince Nana showing a serious side, really good stuff. Really, really enjoyed it. Then we've got the main event, which was Roderick Strong versus Orange Cassidy. The winner would face Takeshita next week for the international title. This was Orange Cassidy's return match after being away for 6 weeks, which, would you believe, is his longest spell away from AEW since its inception. That is what I like to call a workhorse. The laziest man in pro wrestling is the workhorse of pro wrestling. It's brilliant. This was a very quick-paced match, as you would imagine. It was very fun to watch between two great wrestlers who clearly know each other very well. Orange Cassidy ended up winning with the Orange Punch, which set up the match next week. Cassidy then ended up being attacked by the Don Callis family in Takeshita and Mark Davis. Omega came in for the save. They both team up to then get rid of the Don Callis family. And then there's a lovely moment where Omega picks up the title and you see Orange Cassidy look at it. And it teases the possibility of what if Takeshita loses?
Yeah.
What would that match be? And obviously that would be Omega versus Cassidy, who have a lot of history together, which is very nice indeed. It won't be. It'll be Takeshita versus Omega. But I like the fact that they tried to tease it just to throw you off a little bit going into next week. But overall, really good show. Obviously, that one segment, ignore it, pretend it never happened. But overall, really, really good stuff from top to bottom. Thoroughly enjoyed this show. Like, it started off hot with the promo, finished really well with the match. Loads of really good promos and stuff scattered in. Great Dynamite.
Absolutely. No, it sounds good. And to be fair, even with the one segment that I've watched of Dynamite with the MJF and Hangman, worth the entry fee alone, I think, to be honest.
Yeah.
So that was Dynamite for this week. Another good one from AEW. Let's head straight into Collision then and talk about Brax's favourite Saturday night viewing in Collision.
Saturday. No, this one also started off really hot. So we have the classic Collision style where the commentators are going through the matches of the night and you're seeing them walk backstage. Something that actually we've seen since before the Netflix deal and stuff on WWE, but WWE is starting to do that a lot more as well to open their shows because it's a very good way of actually hyping up the rest of your show, and also allowing people time to tune into the show as well before it officially starts. Clever stuff. But while that's happening, yeah, you can tell I work in TV, can't you?
Yeah. Didn't come across at all.
But while this is happening, Toni Storm is walking backstage, hyping the fact that she's got a promo again on tonight. Nope, Mariah May attacks her backstage and literally drags her to the stage, like beats her up backstage to the point where she's like not barely moving, drags her out to the stage. And then we've got this moment where Mariah May asks for the spotlight and she lies down with Toni Storm on her chest and just cradles her while just going, "Why did you make me do this? You've made me do this. You've made me who I am." Like, it was so good. Basically, she's like, "You've set it up. You know, this is going to be our Hollywood ending." That's the quote that they're using for this end of the trilogy, is this is the Hollywood ending.
Yeah.
She puts over the fact that, you know, this began together, this must end together. You know, we are intertwined, you know, with each other, it's a very different Mariah May to the Mariah May that we saw before Grand Slam. Before Grand Slam, she was dismissing Tony quite a lot. Now it's very much like they are on level playing field. It feels more like they're both here. You know, before Wembley, you had Toni Storm feel like the bigger star. Before Grand Slam, you had Mariah May feel like the biggest star. This is the one where they both feel on the same level, and it's worth the title of the Hollywood ending. And then she finishes off with, you know, "I will write the ending to our story in your own blood." And it's so well done, where blood has been the entire theme of their entire story as well. Yep. You know, from the original attack with the shoe way back when the turn happened. Really good stuff here. Again, by Toni Storm and Mariah May. This is obviously the one I'm referring to when I say this is the most hype match I am for going into Revolution. I think Toni Storm is going to retain the title because I don't think they'll do the switch that soon. But like, it's still going to have me on tender hooks because, as I said, this is the Hollywood ending. Anything could happen, and I'm really excited for it. Then we have one of it's the surprise match of the week, possibly match of the week, in the Beast Mortos versus Hologram. Just wow. These two just stole the show. They were like, "Okay, you've just had a really, really good segment. Yeah, we're going to come out and we're just going to have a great match." And it's just, there's something about these two that's just so impressive. You've got Hologram, which is the very traditional lucha libre flips, you know, the using of the ropes to manipulate how their body just twists and turns around the ring and how they fly around the ring. Then you've got the Beast Mortos, who's a lot stronger and is... If you've never seen a match by the Beast Mortos, I loved him back in TNA and Impact Wrestling. Really excited for his move over to AEW, and I feel like he's he's starting to gain that momentum and more matches
Mm-hmm.
where he can show off the fact that his strength is a big part of why he works in Lucha Libre matches, because it's so different. And when he's throwing around hologram, it means hologram can sell his ass off for the entire match, and you end up with this beautiful creation. And my words will never be able to do this match justice to how good it was. It was so impressive. There was one suicide dive by hologram where I thought he might have died. There was another suicide dive by the Beast Mortos, which was one of the most impressive things I've ever seen. He did about 50 turns before hitting hologram, which was insane. Brilliant match. After the match, after hologram wins, hologram's the one that picks up the win. He continues his unbeaten streak in AEW. Beast Mortos goes for the attack afterwards. Commander comes in for the save, and there's a nice little moment. I honestly think that them two could be a really cool tag team, especially while hologram's at the very beginning of his AEW career. I know he's been there for a little bit now, but he's still very new. And still needs to be familiarized with the crowd. I think that could be a very good tag team down the line if they want to go that way, away from the singles stuff, because I think the singles titles are too far above where hologram is right now to be able to have him go for one of those, win one of those, and go on a run with it. I think they're just too high and the storylines are too tied up, where I think that maybe having like a mini tag team could work. And for Commander as well. The one thing I wanted to mention as well, no blue lighting. They got rid of it for the match. They had it for the entrance, got rid of it for the match. I'm now happy. I retract my statement from last week where I criticized it. I said if they didn't use it in the match, I'd be okay with it. They didn't use it in the match. I'm okay with it. We then have a Harley Cameron interview promo. It's again, really good babyface promo. It cements the babyface turn for Harley Cameron. She speaks about her dream of becoming a professional wrestler, this entire dream of going from Australia, saying that she's going to go over to America, and then goes, and that was the dream of my neighbor. But I took that dream and I've achieved it. And it's so well done in the most Harley Cameron way possible. Really good babyface promo. Loved it. We then have Gabe Kidd's debut in AEW facing the Butcher. Gabe Kidd obviously wins, but I really like the pairing with the Butcher, who's a very physical wrestler. Gabe Kidd shows his physical side, and immediately you watch that match and you go, okay, this is who Gabe Kidd is. This is his style of wrestling. He's going to be feared. Another thing to reference is the fact that Don Callis was watching during this match, and Gabe Kidd has history with Kenny Omega. Mm-hmm. So possibly we're getting a new addition to the Don Callis family, and that's going to get strengthened in the time that Gabe Kidd is over in America, because obviously he's not going to be there forever because he's a New Japan star, but you know, he could join briefly. We then have Kyle Fletcher accept Ospreay's challenge to a steel cage match. That challenge was obviously done on Grand Slam last week. Finally accepted now. We knew it was going to be accepted. But again, worth mentioning. We then have Julia Hart beat Queen Amarata in a very good match. Julia Hart, again, is just one of the coolest wrestlers on the roster. She just everything about her, like the entire look, the entire gimmick, everything about her works. And then in ring is the fact that, you know, she can, you know, the fact that her finisher just ties you up and you just can't get out. You know, that's just such a horror-y sort of trope. So works really well with the Hounds of Hell. Really enjoyed this match. Queen Amarata actually got a really good showing as well. She's one to keep an eye on going forwards. But this was Julia Hart's time to get the victory. Then we have a Murder Machine squash match, which started off quite funny because as the announcer was announcing the Murder Machines, they already had the two local talents on their shoulders and was chucking them in the ring and throwing them around the ring while they're being announced. Was quite funny and quite a fun way to start the match. But we know how that's ending. They're winning the match. They then call out the Hurt Syndicate, basically saying that, you know, we demand a title match on our terms. The Hurt Syndicate come out and basically MVP's like, you're not the champs. Last I see, you have no championships and we do. So we call the shots, not you. And also, Archer, like, what do you think you're going to do? What you've done for the last few years, and that's beat some local talent, and then all of a sudden you're going to get a title match? Absolutely not. That doesn't happen on my watch, which is really good because it's been my frustration with Arch for a long time.
Yeah.
Is he loses a big match, disappears, beats some local talent, gets another big match, loses, and you start the cycle again. And basically, they say, the Hurt Syndicate say, if you beat an actual tag team on Dynamite, they said on Dynamite, but it wasn't announced at the end of the show, so I don't know whether it will or won't happen on Dynamite. But they basically were like, if you beat an actual team, you can then face us.
Yeah,
that's and you've done it. We then get later on in the night, the Outrunners basically say to the Hurt Syndicate, if we challenge the Murder Machines and we win, do we get the match? And MVP is like, yeah, I've got some good news and some bad news for you. If you win, you get an AEW tag team title match. And they were like, well, what's the bad news? He went, and if you win, you get an AEW tag team title match. And it was really good stuff. So yeah, we're going to get the Outrunners versus the Murder Machines. I would presume the Murder Machines would win that, but the Outrunners have been on hot form. Honestly, could be the next in line to win those titles. So it wouldn't surprise me if they go down the Outrunners route and just completely go, let's go gung-ho and give the Outrunners the titles. I think it will be the Murder Machines, though. Then we have the Trios titles match between Garcia, Coolhand, and Daddy Magic versus the Death Riders. Classic Trios match. This one was really good because they removed Daniel Garcia from the match. So they stop Garcia ever being tagged in. Every time he nearly gets tagged in, someone either takes him off the apron or they punch him off the apron. They stop him being tagged in because he's the TNT champion. And this is what I like about AEW a lot, is that if a champion is in another match, they make it really important that that champion is in that match. So they made this important. They were like, well, you could have a double champion, Daniel Garcia. Daniel Garcia is a danger because he's a champion. This is a man that doesn't get pinned. He's a champion. So therefore, the Death Riders were stopping them from being in the match. And when he came in, he was a complete game changer, and the tides turned. Ultimately, though, Pac does get the victory for the Death Riders by putting the Brutalizer on Coolhand for the win. He continues to hold on to the hold after the bell. The Undisputed Kingdom come out for the save. And then, while they've chased off the rest of the Death Riders, Pac is in the middle of the ring. And they keep taking Pac out, and then all of a sudden, Cope's music hits. Now, Cope said, and what I didn't reference on the Dynamite review, is that Cope said, I'm going to take out all of you so I have that one-on-one match with Moxley at Revolution. And he comes out with 2 chairs. And what I love about this is that you have the Undisputed Kingdom, Daddy Magic, Coolhand, and Daniel Garcia surrounding the ring, stopping the Death Riders from interfering and making them watch the fact that Cope concertos Pac once and concertos him twice. And the entire time, Cope's eyes is on Moxley. He doesn't smile, he doesn't smirk, he's just glaring at him as if to go, you've done this. And Moxley looks distraught. Really good stuff there. We then have the Max Caster Open Challenge of the greatest professional wrestler on the planet, facing, who would answer the call, but Brody King, who absolutely destroys him and wins the match. I'm really enjoying the open challenges. I'm sorry, I'm a simple human being. I'm really enjoying them.
It's like the reverse of the John Cena US challenge. He's just losing every time.
It's brilliant. It's like, here's the return of Rush. Here's, this wrestler. Here's this wrestler. Here's all your favorite talents just destroying Max Caster in a squash match. It's brilliant. A really good way of passing time before the eventual Bowens match down the line, I presume. Then we had the main event, which was Chris Jericho versus Bandido for the Ring of Honor World Championship. What I do have to reference is, number one, it's very nice to have a title match be the main event. That has not been the occasion, been one of my criticisms for a while. Maybe they're watching because they did it this time. However, I don't like the fact that the Ring of Honor title is being defending on AEW. On Ring of Honor, they had Jericho pinned in a tag match to have the the title match then on AEW TV. I think it should have been the other way around. I think they should have had him pinned on AEW TV with the title match on Ring of Honor to convince people to watch Ring of Honor.
Watch Ring of Honor, yeah.
Yeah, you know, because if the title match is on AEW, I don't need to watch Ring of Honor. Like, I don't need to watch Ring of Honor to know who the Ring of Honor World Champion is, because if the title's being defended on AEW. So, you know, for me, I felt like it should have been the other way around, but I understand why it wasn't. There was a 20 count for count outs in this match. And this might be something I've completely missed. Right. And if there is, someone please tell me. I don't understand. I was there and it got to 10 and the crowd understood what was going on. So I've clearly missed something when it comes to Ring of Honor matches.
Right,
maybe it is a 20 count in Ring of Honor. And I'm not the biggest. I don't know much about Ring of Honor.
That does ring a bell, to be fair.
Does ring a bell. It's never been a promotion I've watched. So because it's just not been readily available in the UK and I'm not paying money. So
you cheap swine, you Bragster.
I know. So it might be a classic Ring of Honor thing, but it really caught me off guard, especially. And you know, I probably wouldn't have been the only one per se if I am someone who just watches AEW. All of a sudden, there's a Ring of Honor match, and they are literally counting above 10. There was at one point it gets to 10, and I'm like, oh, is that an 11? What? 12? And I'm like, and the commentators are then like, as you know, it's to 20. I'm like, I didn't know that. So that would have been good information to know beforehand. So unless I missed something blaringly obvious early on in the match where they described that, that really caught me off guard. And I wouldn't have probably been the only one if you were just a casual AEW fan.
Apparently, when I've Googled it there, it is a standard in ROH matches that they count to 20.
Right. Okay, that's good to know from here on out.
So there will be no confusion on a 20 count in a Ring of Honor match.
No, there will be no confusion when another eventual Ring of Honor World Title match happens on AEW TV, because they don't actually care about the Ring of Honor brand. They just want to use the titles and the legacy that it has to enhance the AEW product. Just my opinion. So during the it was, you know, actually a good match. I won't lie. I'm not going to criticize Chris Jericho for the sake of criticizing Chris Jericho. This was a good match. Really enjoyed it. Classic Jericho tropes like the Walls of Jericho, Lion Soul, all in there, all being kicked out of at different moments. At one point, Bandido does what the best way of describing it, and I'm not comparing Bandido and Logan Paul, just to point this out, but the best way of describing it, so you understand the move that he did, is that he did what Logan did to Rey Mysterio the other week, where he goes, with almost like the
moonsault carry,
the moonsault crossbody slam type thing.
Yeah,
like it's the best way of describing it. It was really good though. I was like, oh my god! And then obviously Chris Jericho kicked out. And then in the end we have Bandido setting up his finisher while he flips Chris Jericho up in the air. Roll up 1, 2, 3. Bandido is pinned, but not pinned completely. You know, it was pinned cleanly, but it wasn't one of those where you're like, oh, that's definitive. That there are more to come down the line if they want to. But one thing I do like is Jericho was completely respectful in this match. There wasn't any cheating. There wasn't, you know, anything dastardly. There were a lot of moments of respect during the match, which is quite an interesting thing to add to Jericho's character, which I quite like. But yeah, overall, really good Collision show. Awesome. Really enjoyed it.
Awesome. So 2 good shows, 1 mediocre segment.
Yeah.
Out of the 2, that's all you can say about it.
I can't complain.
That's the dream. Well, maybe not the dream. Maybe the dream is not having the mediocre segment, but we'll take what we can get, basically. Okay, so that's the AEW shows done. Next up, we have the Raw Roundup. So, Monday Night Raw. We had that a couple of nights back, and we started out in wonderful fashion with Logan Paul entering the scene. It was great. Starts the show doing his usual heel shtick, and to be fair, he's very good at winding up the crowd. I have to give him that. Does his usual, why do you dislike me? I don't understand. He did a bit of a skit where he was talking to the pilot on the plane about turning the plane around, but then he went, no, no, I must go and wrestle in front of the peasants. I must give them a show, which I think if it was in someone else's hands, probably would have landed better. But for me, it was a bit like, okay, I see what you're going for, but I don't think you've got the chops to pull that off just yet. But anyway, he's winding up the crowd as he does. Then Punk interrupts, as Punk will do. The cheeky scallywag he is. And then Logan asks what Punk's problem with him is, and asks Punk if he is jealous of him. To which Punk says no. Logan is basically like every wrestler he's seen before, thinks they're a bit louder than everybody else, so that means they're the next best thing. Logan Paul is a dime a dozen. That was the line that Punk used. And that people deserve a better character than him on the show. He tells Logan that he won't be around long enough for people to remember him. And then tells Logan that he's going to eliminate him from the chamber as revenge for the Rumble. To which then there was a few other lines backwards and forwards. And then the interesting line to me was that Punk, once again, we haven't heard him call himself this for a while, but then called himself the devil. Which will probably go into my Elimination Chamber little theory later. Mm-hmm. To which then Logan fires a few words, and then they stare off, and then Logan slaps the taste out of Punk's mouth and runs away. And then he's like, oh, sorry, putting on this really weird kiddie voice, and I was kind of like, okay, sure, that's what you're going with. And then turns back to Punk, and it turns out Punk's got cut himself in his mouth, and he's actually bleeding, so it must have been an actual pretty savvy slap from Logan. He's obviously used to slapping people. But anyway, so that was the opening segment. Then we had a run of matches, which was quite bizarre. Like, we had like a handful of matches in the middle of this, so I'm not going to go necessarily into 100% of the detail, because there are other segments coming up which I want to get into. But we started off with Ludwig, Pete Dunne, and Penta in a triple threat, which kind of was building up off the past couple of weeks. Penta, once again, great. Again, everything he touches at the minute is gold, and all three men had their moves in, and it was great. But Ludwig got the win at the end, which was a nice little twist, and again continues his ascent up the hierarchy in WWE. And again, we'll see what that builds off of in terms of him and Penta, and with Dunne as well, because I don't think Pete Dunne's done in his side of the equation just yet. Next up, we had New Day getting the win versus LWO. Dragon Lee came out for the save at the end when New Day was laying a beat down, but then New Day ended up standing tall at the end anyway. Then Gunther came out in his ring gear, and I was thinking, what's going on here? He then basically picks Tozawa, because in one of the pre-Raw footages, you had Gunther walking in, basically minding his own business, but then you cut to the right, and then you had Alpha Academy doing a TikTok dance. So Gunther basically says, I've picked someone who I think is worthy, and he picked Tozawa for a match. And then proceeded to murder a man on live television. Some of those slaps were soul-destroying to hear, quite frankly. You know in Marvel, when Doctor Strange touches Spider-Man and his soul flies out of him? That's how I felt hearing those slaps. So, yeah. So Gunther demolishes Tozawa and does what he does. And yeah. That was Gunther's segment of the week. Valkyria versus Dakota was a good title match for the Intercontinental title and continues what I've been crying out for Valkyria and the IC title. Give it good matches to build up that heritage and give it some prestige, and that's what they've done. It was then followed by Ivy Nile attacking both of the competitors, which could result in maybe a tag match somewhere down the line, or maybe a triple threat. Who knows? We'll see. And then you had Dirty Dom versus Bron Breakker, building off a previous segment where Finn was angry with Dom for basically mucking up everything, saying last week was the worst in Judgment Day's history. And again, Finn denying Dom's application for a new member in Judgment Day. So again, building on the tension there. And then we had the match, which then ended in a DQ from Judgment Day. But the most interesting thing to me was the sort of, not standoff, but the smirk or stare-off between Finn and Bron, which kind of ended like it did last week with AJ and Bron. And then I remembered Penta had his eyes on that championship a few short weeks back. So then I went, IC 6-man ladder match at the Mania. Anybody? That looks quite good possibility.
I think that might be why they had Ludwig win earlier on
Yes.
in the night, because I
Yes.
think that I think that Dunn isn't done yet in this little feud, but I don't think he goes on to Mania in that ladder match. I think we have the entire build with Ludwig, Penta obviously still going back and forth. You have AJ in there, you have Finn in there, you have Braun. And who could be that last spot for the IC Championship at Mania?
Dirty Dom?
No, Sheamus.
Okay.
I honestly, if they don't want Sheamus, it could easily be Dirty Dom.
I could see them have that moment between Dom and Finn at the end, and then Dom wins the belt, and then it just totally undermines Finn totally in what he wants to do. I
could see that easily happening if they don't want Sheamus in that match, because if Sheamus is in that match, I feel like they might.
If Sheamus is in it, he's got to win it. Yeah.
I think he's got to win almost his next shot at that title.
Yeah.
So if they don't want Sheamus in there because they don't want him winning the title, Dom being in there would be a very good option. But I think that it is so obvious, and I don't care how obvious it is, but I think it's so obvious that they want this IC ladder match at Mania, and I will eat it up because all of those competitors are bloody brilliant.
Or Dom is in the match, wins the belt, loses it on the Raw after Mania to Sheamus.
That would be unbelievable. He holds an open challenge.
He's like, I'm holding on to this forever.
That's genius. That is actually genius. Is you have him win the whole thing and like him undermine Finn, him turn up on Monday and be like, "Don't worry, Finn. And then either Finn costs him on that Monday, or you just have him completely screw it up straight away. So they think that, this is great for the Judgment Day. I've got the title. I'm going to hold an open challenge. Sheamus answers it and Sheamus wins it. That's genius. Yes, do that. That. That's brilliant. That is brilliant.
Okay, so with that being said, we'll see what happens with the IC title.
Sorry, that has really got me excited. I really love that idea.
That would be cool, yeah. Okay, so then we get to probably the better of the promos between two people versus CM Punk and Logan. We had Cody and Seth. So Cody comes out, clearly conflicted with what's happened on Friday. Understandable. He's being offered the world to be someone's champion. It's quite clear that he doesn't know what to do. He's going through the struggle that his father had, obviously the infamous Dusty Rhodes, making ends meet, that he understands what the Rock is offering him is basically taking that all away, and he'll never have to worry about anything ever again. He won't have to scratch and claw. And on those words, Seth interrupts and comes out. And he points out, Seth, that this is the first time they've been together in the ring since Mania, which is crazy to think that they haven't had a moment together at any point. Yeah, which is mental. And basically gets straight to it after that and says, what the hell are you thinking about taking this offer? Like, after everything we did, after battling these two in Roman and Rock and going through the ringer at Mania to make sure we got you that belt, tell me you're not actually seriously considering taking this. And then asks Cody not to make him regret everything that he's done for him, and obviously sacrificing himself at Mania to get him that belt. Because, of course, we know Seth had his knee busted up, his back was basically scrambled. He was not in good shape by the end of Mania.
And he lost his title.
Of course, to Drew. Cody then reminds Seth that he isn't himself a saint when you consider he's put a sledgehammer at the end of the Hell in Cell match in Cody's back. He put a chair in the Shield's back in the day. But then he also tells Seth that he hasn't forgotten what Seth did for him to get him that belt. And then there's a bit backwards and forwards, and Seth's like, look, I want it to be you at the end of Mania, me and you, after I win the Chamber. He says, but the difference between me and The Rock is I'm not coming for your soul, I'm just coming for the title after I win at Chamber. End of segment. And I thought that segment on its own sold way more what Cody's going to have to do on Saturday than anything that got said on the Friday Night Smackdown. And it just did the job brilliantly. And that is why I think I've uplifted myself for the excitement going into Saturday.
Yeah.
Probably everyone else was probably excited for it anyway, and I was a little bit excited, but this was what tipped it over the edge for me. So, 3/4 of the way through, we're now at the end of Monday Night Raw. And let me tell you, Bragster, the main event was an absolute banger. You had the tag title match between Bianca and Naomi versus Liv and Raquel. Now, because of the build-up to this match, I was thinking it's the main event, either two things are happening. One of two things is happening. Either the titles are switching, or Jade's back. It's one of the two, and we get an answer to what's been going on. Now, as the match went on, and it just built and built and built to an ending, and you could tell in the first 5 minutes it was going to be brilliant, and it just kept building and building and building, and every single woman in that match, and even Dom coming out at the end and doing his nefarious means, everyone played their roles brilliantly, and this is probably, I'd have to watch the main events back, but this is probably my favourite main event of Raw so far this year, I would say. And the momentum it built as it kept going, and as they kept interacting with each other, and then you had Raquel getting involved, you had Dom getting involved, and then kickouts galore, glorious moves galore. There was so many great moments in this match. Like, I can't oversell how good this match was for a main event of Raw. It just had everything. And then we got the title change. And even I was a little bit surprised. I was like, oh, okay, we're doing this now. Like, I really thought this was the match for Mania going at this point. But I did say a couple of weeks ago about my pick for Chamber, and this makes this more likely. So I'm kind of like, okay, I'll take it.
Yeah,
so again, I felt like it was a good Raw, but this main event was fantastic. If you watch one match of Raw all week, I could point you to Penta and Dunn and Ludwig, but I think the main event was better because all around you didn't know which way it was going. With the Penta one, you always felt like Penta was going to win it. Obviously, it had the twist at the end, but Penta dominated that match, really.
Yeah.
But this had the back and forth, kickouts galore, moves galore, story just building in the match of which way is it going, you didn't know, and the crowd was into it as well, which really added to it. So yeah, it was a great main event, and yeah, it was a good Raw overall, and yeah, it was a lot better of a pre-PLE match or show than the one before the Rumble. This kind of not necessarily built anything necessarily. Obviously, the Cody bit did specifically, but again, my hype for Elimination Chamber is always going to be high because I love an Elimination Chamber as a match or as a pay-per-view. So yeah, so it was a good Raw overall.
So my question to you is, what happens with the tag titles now?
It's a difficult one to answer because I think I'm not really sure is the honest answer, because there's a few different ways they could go. I think you could have some challenges be made out of a couple of babyfaces thrown together and just have them face off. But there's not really many. I can't think of many female tag teams in my head. No. So I think it is probably going to be a mixture of people coming together, maybe an uncanny alliance of people who maybe didn't get on beforehand that might come together, or maybe someone from NXT comes up and challenges them. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of similar. Like my thinking is, and I do agree that it sort of makes the chamber match very different now. But I think that basically, if they're going down that route, then that means EO loses next week. I can very much see Liv and Raquel versus Dakota Kai and EO Sky being the match and rather than doing the classic let's have multiple tag teams, because they might be doing that with the men's on the SmackDown side, then maybe they just do go straight up with a straight tag team match between four incredible women's wrestlers. You know, they've already proven on Monday Night Raw that, you know, the women's tag team scene can put on a banger of a match. Why not do the exact same at Mania, where you have Io and Dakota, who are brilliant, versus Liv and Raquel, who are brilliant. And
Yeah.
you just have 4 wrestlers who just will put on a banger in the middle of the Mania card. I think that's where I would go. Whether that's where they go, I don't know. But I think that's what I would do.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you bring up Io, because I did think when I was watching the show, obviously they've got Ivy Nile attacking Valkyria in terms of the next sort of title match for Valkyria to deal with, or the next opponent to deal with. I don't think there's a better way you can give that title a better match in terms of someone who's maybe in the upper echelons or who's on the shows week in, week out, and give Valkyria an opponent worthy of having a title match at Mania than her and Io. Yeah. If they don't go the Becky route, because I know that's what everyone thinks is going to happen. Like Becky's,
I don't think she is now. I think she would have already returned.
Well,
I think she's in post Mania return. I think she's Raw after Mania return.
Okay, fair enough. Well, again, that could happen. Not disagreeing or anything like that.
No.
If they don't go with Becky and it isn't Becky Valkyria, I can't think of a better person who's on the Raw cast right now than Io, because everyone expects Io to lose next week.
Yeah.
Now, if she doesn't, that's a plot twist in itself.
Well,
a hell of a plot twist of itself. But if Io doesn't win next week, I don't know if they would necessarily go with that. But the tag match does make sense now that you've said it in my head. But I don't think there's another person on that roster on the Raw side that makes more sense than Io for me. Because, again, it isn't necessarily a babyface heel match, but it's 2 great wrestlers just hammering it out for a title match. And I don't think there's a better way to build that title heading into Mania than doing that. No. So we'll see. But again, there's a lot of questions coming out of Elimination Chamber. There's a lot of questions heading into SmackDown, because what are Bianca and Naomi going to be like after that? Are they going to be all rosy and cuddly with each other anymore? Or are they going to be like, right, this is over now? Like, Chamber, it's everybody for themselves, which could well happen. Or one of them turns on the other in the Chamber, and then you go from there, and that's it, basically. But we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, it dangled some strings and some teasers of things that could come in the future, and it set things up nicely heading into SmackDown and heading into Saturday. And yeah, very much looking forward to seeing what happens next. So yeah, that's where we'll leave it for Raw. And for now, we'll have Bragster's favourite segment of the week. Take it away, Bragster.
It is Taking the Pins! Wrestler of the Week.
I might have to start muting you when you do this, because I'm cringing every time. Yeah, sure. I'm only joking. So, Wrestler of the Week. Let's get into it. I love winding them up. Wrestler of the Week. So easy. I know it's very easy to wind you up. I've got you twice this show. That's like a new record. So, Wrestler of the Week. Let's go with Bragster first, because we know you torture yourself every week. I tried to answer this question.
Yes.
Who is your Wrestler of the Week, Bragster?
It's one of those where we sort of spoke about it before, where I don't really know until I start talking about the shows for definite who my Wrestler of the Week is going to be. For me, I think it's actually ended up really obvious, which is very much a change for me. But I think my Wrestler of the Week, I want to give the props to the Beast Mortos. Do I think the Beast Mortos is going to win Wrestler of the Week again? Probably not. But I think that him and Hologram stole the show of AEW in terms of matches. I think that, for me, it was the best match of the entire week on AEW. And quite frankly, for me, that was a big surprise. And, the Beast Mortos is someone I've been a fan of for a while. As I said, he's very, very different to a lot of lucha wrestlers, to the point where he stands out so well. And when you're against someone like Hologram, who can sell so well, that it just makes the Beast Mortos look so good. And then even in defeat, I'm still coming out of that match going, Beast Mortos was so cool. Like, that was so good. And to get that reaction out of me in defeat takes a lot of doing. So that's why I'm going to go with the Beast Mortos this week.
Awesome. Okay.
What about you?
Well, I mean, in terms of my wrestler week, I think it has to be one of the 4 women in that tag
Yeah.
match because I was watching, generally on the edge of my seat watching that match, which isn't very often I say that about a Monday Night Raw match. Can I put all 4 down? No. It has to be
No.
one. I'll go with Liv. I'll go with Liv Morgan. Again, it's impossible to separate the 4 of them because they all brought it to a very good match. But Liv has been probably one of my top 5 wrestlers of the past year, and every time we see her on screen, whether it's a segment, a match, a promo, whatever it is she's doing, she's very good at it, and she's very entertaining. Heel, face, whatever she does, I just think she's excellent, and this week was no different. So I'm going with Liv Morgan this week.
That's a very good choice. I mean, just to harken back on what you were saying there, like Liv Morgan is one of the highlights and has been on Raw for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, since that rear injury, she's just carried everything.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, for an injury that big to happen at the time that it did, the women's division could have easily have fell apart. And she managed to carry that division. Now, did they necessarily have plans of what to do when Rhea came back? Not really, because they kind of didn't want Rhea to win the title straight away, but then knew that they wanted to put the title back on Rhea at some point. So you kind of had that weird limbo period. And despite that limbo, though, Liv never looked bad. She always stood out as one of the most entertaining parts of Raw and has continued to do that for a very long time. I'm just glad that beyond, you know, the marks per se, she's actually starting to get a lot of love from general wrestling fans.
Yeah.
You know, she was kind of put across as like overhyped by a lot of fans, but fans are starting to realize now, the vast majority of them, no, Liv Morgan is just very, very good.
Yeah.
So yeah, she's just to harken on your point of her being one of the best over the past year. I completely agree.
Absolutely, 100%. And that was this week's rest of the week.
Oh, look at you go!
I might have just a little bit, just a cheeky one, you know, just to throw that in myself in there a little bit, just to warm myself to the audience because you know I am a bit of a miserable bugger sometimes. Anyway, enough of that misery. We'll go into the main event of this week's podcast, shall we say, and we'll have a bit of a preview. Have some predictions of Elimination Chamber whilst Bragster's trying to recover from his breakdown there.
Yeah, it's really tickled me.
So, I don't know if you've heard or not, Bragster, but this weekend it's Elimination Chamber.
What?
Saturday night, Elimination Chamber. It's going down. Now,
What? It's going timber?
I know, all right. I know, right? Crazy. So, as we do with every PLE of the WWE calendar, we are going to be doing our predictions again. Now, there is a point between us at this point, if I remember rightly, from the Royal Rumble.
Yes.
Yes, there is 1 point. Bragster is leading at the moment. So, I don't want to leave it too long till I start getting some wins here, so I'm hoping Chamber is going to be where it turns around. So, let's start from the very beginning with a cheeky tag title match. Speaking of tag teams, we've got Tiffany and Trish. That's Tiffany Stratton and Trish Stratus versus Nia Jax and Candice LeRae. Bragster, who is winning that match?
Well, this is actually a tough one. Just to harken on everything, this is one of the most unpredictable cards I have seen, and it's really annoying. But I'm gonna go with the fact that I think there's going to be a lot of moments on this show that might not necessarily get like the big pop moment, right? Where you're like, I think there are going to be big pops, but I think there's going to be moments where it's like, like, you know, there's going to be big moments, but in terms of like getting just general, yay!
Yeah,
I don't think there's going to be, you know, always that throughout the show. So therefore, I'm going to go with Tiffany and Trish, for the fact that Trish is from Canada.
I
Who have you
love,
gone for?
I love the hands down in like affirmation of this is what's gonna happen.
Canada.
Well, we know for definite there's a Canadian that's gonna win on this show, so Canada's gonna have something to celebrate at some point. I think Nia and Candice will win this one.
Ooh,
The reason being, and I'm betting a lot on this, but I think Charlotte gets involved and causes a distraction, and Tiffany ends up taking the pin from Nia potentially. Because I don't think they're going to pin Trish in her home country. Just, I mean, they might do. She is, they can do. Throwaway pin or whatever. But I think Charlotte gets involved, and then you have your beginning of the build to Mania with 6 weeks ago.
So you saw the lineup of Trish, Tiffany, Nia Jax, and Candice LeRae, and don't think that Candice LeRae is taking that pin.
No, I 100%. No. I 100% expect it to be Candice LeRae that takes the pin.
Okay.
But if there is a match where I think that something could go wrong, it's probably here. Yeah. So I am trying to diversify my portfolio, as they say in the business world, and trying to do something a little bit different in the aid and hope that I get some points of view somewhere down the line. This being one of the ones I've got to try and get it from. So I'm hoping Charlotte is going to do me a solid and get me a point here. So, Charlotte, if you're watching, I know you won't be, but if you do at some point or hear this soundbite, do it for Grimmy. Right, so second one. Does Cody take The Rock up on his offer? Yes or no?
Sorry for the silence.
I know what I'd like to see. Because for storyline wise, I want him to take it.
I think his decision influences who wins the chamber. Because heart or head. I don't think he takes up the offer. I don't think he does it. I think that I do believe they're trying or want to make him the next John Cena without being the next John Cena. And when CM Punk says there is no one is Superman, I think they're going to try and make Cody Superman like they did with John Cena, where he never turns bad. Cody has said on many occasions he will never do it. He won't. He said it in AEW, no matter how many times you boo me, I'm not going to turn heel. I'm not going to do it. And he said in WWE, I'm not going to do it. So I'm going to take his word on it. And say he's not going to do it.
But that speaks to not necessarily how well the segment was on the Friday, but how much the hype is built up around it, that the people think there's a possibility of him doing it. My answer to this is no, I don't think he'll take the offer.
Yeah.
For a couple of reasons, but I'll get into that later. So,
I have a feeling we have a similar theory.
Yeah, potentially. Next up is the non-sanctioned match between KO and Sammy. Bragster, yes. Who is your pick for this one, and why?
I want nothing more than that ginger man to come out on top.
I thought you were going to say to crumble and have his neck broken by a party driver.
I want nothing more than for that man to win.
But
I don't think it's going to happen. I think this is KO's win. Now, for me, this match deserves to be on Mania, right? That's how good this match is. And quite frankly, if they pivot to have this match at Mania and just go, stuff it, we'll do it again, I don't care. Do it again. They have great chemistry, these two. They are really good in the ring, and they tell brilliant, brilliant stories. This is what I was saying when I think that there are going to be moments that the fans aren't going to cheer necessarily. I think there is a chance this match ends in complete and utter, the crowd is almost silent, similar to when Sammy lost to Roman.
Yeah.
There's just that moment of, to the point where Kevin kills him. I could see it. I've got visions of just Kevin killing him. There is the possibility of Randy returning here because it's unsanctioned, it's no DQ, and he could return, and that scares me because that would lead to the match really well. But I think that Sammy is going into a program with Karrion Kross, and I think that going into that program best is with Sammy at his lowest, which is him losing here, going into that match with Kross basically telling him to go the extra mile and to turn heel and to turn bad, this, that, and the other, like Kross has managed to do to so many people on purpose, in inverting commas, which the WWE want to tell us it's on purpose. We know it's not. Fans just caught onto it, and then you jumped on the bandwagon. I think that Kevin going into the Randy match with momentum and Sammy going into the Kross match without momentum is the best way forward. Do I think they could swerve us with Randy returning here? Yes. But I don't think it's happening.
Okay. Exactly the opposite. I think Sammy wins.
Yeah.
I think after losing last year to Roman, not last year, the year before.
2 years ago.
2 years ago, sorry, yeah, because it was Gunn for last year. He was on the way to Mania 4, wasn't it? Yeah, sorry, I've got my years wound up. Every year's the same to me at this point. Time is not a thing I abide by in my head.
Time is timey-wimey, you know?
Yes, it is, Matt Smith. David Tennant, whatever you want to call it. So...
I like the fact you got the reference.
I did get the reference. I'm saying Sammy, because I think Randy comes back and gets in the way and ruins Kevin again. And I think that he needs a win, regardless of if he's going to Kross at Mania or if he's going somewhere else. I think Sammy needs a win to kind of... I can see it being KO, don't get me wrong. I like a lot of things when we do these predictions, when you put something across, I'm like, yes, that's 50-50 in my head as well. Yeah. But I just think if you are going Sammy and Kross, I think you need Sammy to be on a win going in, and then I think to potentially give Kross the win at Mania and build him a little bit.
Could see that. I think that I agree with you to the extent that where I think whether Sammy wins or loses here actually influences whether he beats Kross or whether Kross actually gets a huge win, and we might actually see the year that I predicted Kross might have at the start of the year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I just think Randy will get involved, and yeah, they'll not want to... Because again, this could end up being... I don't think it will, because I think the chamber match will end up finishing... The men's chamber match will be last. But if they do it like they've done it in the past, and this is the last one, I think you need to send them out on a high, not be deadly silent at the end of it. And if Randy comes back, Sammy wins. Hey presto, there you go. And then you build a KO Randy at Mania, and everyone's happy, including myself. So
I do think that's the hardest match on the card to predict.
Nah.
What do you mean no?
No, I think the men's match is far harder to
what, the men's chamber? Yeah,
I think that's far harder to call. That's far harder to call on this one. But before that, women's elimination chamber.
Yes.
Now, I do have an answer for this.
Do go through the participants, the people that may.
To people who don't know who's in it, although I'd be surprised if you didn't.
Yes.
Liv Morgan versus Bianca Belair versus Alexa Bliss versus Bayley versus Naomi versus Roxanne Perez. Bragster, break it down for me. Who do you think's going to win?
No, I don't know.
Well, don't throw a strop about it. Just give me an answer.
No, I am throwing a strop about it.
Now.
No.
Do it now.
Shut up.
Give me an answer.
I really thought they were going to be lazy and do Liv Morgan again. But this time have a triple threat with EO, because EO's been gaining momentum and the crowd are massively into the fact of EO being involved in the women's title match at Mania. So initially I thought Liv will win here. She'll maybe get involved in the title match on Monday, and you'd end up with a triple threat match, and everyone's then happy. WWE get their nice little rematch with Rhea and Liv, and they continue their feud and finish their feud. But you have the wild card of EO. Then they won the titles, and that changed everything to the point now where I am far too on board with your theory that you had ages ago, and I nearly laughed away.
No, you did laugh away. You laughed that away, boy. You don't say you nearly laughed that away, you little son of a gun. You did laugh that away because you looked at me like I was absolutely stark raving loony, and I was like,
you were.
They were on a cover of a video game together, for Christ's sake. They want that match so badly.
But I'm sorry, I underestimated Triple H's hard-ons, all right? I underestimated it. Like,
that bit might be silenced.
No, for certain matches, he gets very excited for certain matches and very determined to put certain matches on. This is one of them. And you were right.
I can't believe you're actually stealing my answer.
It's Bianca Belair, isn't it?
I feel like I should have an extra point for the sheer fortune telling that I had from like a month ago. Right,
no.
Okay. You can shut up now because you said your answer. I'm going to break it down. So, this is how it's gonna happen, right? So, Liv and Bianca will be the final two. That will be the final two, right? Alexa's going to get taken out by nefarious means from the Wyatt Six. They keep teasing it. That's what's going to happen. The flickers keep happening on the screen every time she's having a match, having a promo, doing whatever.
No one wants it though.
It's going to happen. I'm telling you. It doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. It might end up being a good thing. We don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Alexa's going to be knocked out. Bayley and Roxanne are going to end up knocking each other out somehow, some way. Liv's going to end up knocking Naomi out when her and Bianca are having a squabble. And then it's going to be Liv and Bianca, and you're thinking, oh no, Liv's going to win again. She's going to win the titles, and then she's going to win the Elimination Chamber in the same week. Hell of a week for Liv Morgan. Bianca, done. 1, 2, 3, bosh. Bianca wins the Elimination Chamber. Which means Roxanne Perez is going to do an underdog story, go number 1 in the chamber, and win the whole thing.
I want that so badly because I think that would be unbelievable. But I do think that the match is Bayley Roxanne. I think that's what they're doing. But
when I said before about the women's tag titles, uncanny allies.
Oh no! Don't do that. No.
I'm just saying.
Because I can see it. I can see it, and that makes it worse. That makes it so much worse that I can see it. I don't.
Why do you do this with your hands?
Because I don't like it. I'm throwing a
You look like a stroppy child, boy.
I am like a stroppy child.
Oh no!
I don't like it.
Okay.
Because I can see it. Similar to the Alexa thing of being taken out by the Wyatt Six, I can see it. Yeah, it's Bianca, isn't it?
Okay, so we're both saying Bianca.
I could see that you get Naomi tied up in the whole Jade thing. I think there is a chance that Jade could return early, and therefore she's not actually annoyed at Bianca. She's annoyed at Naomi.
The two Naomi and Bianca face off in the ring. Maybe it's Naomi and Bianca are the last two. Then Jade comes in and bang, Naomi's down, and you're like, what the hell's going on here? Pin. 1, 2, 3.
Would usually predict that if I didn't think there's going to be another interference style thing happening in the chamber in another one.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, they can do it both. I mean, this is going to be a night of some returns, I think. So there we go. Right. So we both said Bianca for the women's.
Yeah.
Let's go to the men's. A brag star, as we like to call you here. Who's your pick for the men's elimination chamber?
Exactly the same as what I've said since day one of this year.
You've said about 5 different names.
Since day one of this year.
You've said about 5 different names.
Since day one of I keep putting my finger up and stopping it. Since day one of this year, I've said that I believe the main event of WrestleMania
in Miracles
will be Cody Rhodes and CM Punk.
Okay.
I still believe the main event of WrestleMania will be Cody Rhodes and CM Punk. Okay, he didn't win the Rumble like I thought he would, but no one saw Jay coming, so no one can come at me for that one. But I think that Cena loses again. I think that's where this is going. And I think, speaking of interferences, you're not going to like it, But Logan Paul is going to come back in after being eliminated, and he's going to help eliminate John Cena. And you lead to John Cena versus Logan Paul, which will be one of your marquee matches on that card, easily. It's basically like Theory Cena Type 2, but this time you got Logan, who's a mega social media star. I think that's going to be one of their big matches on the card. And I think CM Punk is going to win, go on to the main event of WrestleMania to win that title from Cody Rhodes.
I agree. But if this wasn't John Cena's last WrestleMania, I would be 100% on board. I don't think you can just leave John Cena fighting Logan Paul in the middle of a WrestleMania card. I think you can. I don't think it's the right move. I think if you are WWE and you want marketing and you want build up for a WrestleMania, nothing builds up more than John Cena's final WrestleMania in the main event for the title against your new boy who is carrying the company on his back for the past year or two.
Yeah.
I want CM Punk in the main event. I need CM Punk in the main event for me to be a happy wrestling fan for the rest of my life. I don't think it's this year. Well, I do think it's this year. But the John Cena-esque shaped hole that is staring me in the face because I can't see him.
Yeah.
I think it's Punk or Cena. It's one or the other in my head. And any given day, it changes. Any given 5 minutes, it changes, in all honesty. But I just think Cena's final Mania, he cannot not be in the main event. I understand there's the whole thing with Punk of not having a Mania main event yet. I get it. His time will be next year. It should be next year. Unless that Heyman favor comes in and they do a triple threat.
Which I would be so on board with. I cannot explain to you how much I'd be on board with that.
Me too. But I just think it's Cena's final Elimination Chamber. It's his final Mania. Now they're going to put Cena out. It's going to be Cena first, and I'm like, oh, he's not going all the way through this match. But it can't, for build and for excitement, and when Cena's in so many of the builds to Raw as well, this is me trying to be really nerdy and look into the details way more than I should. Trust me, I'm going to be doing it tomorrow when F1 testing starts. It's going to be a thing. But it can't not be in the main event.
I see your point. I think there's 3 options for Cena at Mania, which is the main event. But my worry is with that is I think you would have to do the Cody heel turn even at Mania for that to work, because I don't think you could have Cody beat Cena in the main event and be cheered. So therefore, you either have to have Cena win. I don't think Cody wins.
But
that's it. Is I think like you either have Cena win, but then what does Cena do for the rest of the year per se, right? Just to like, and I know have a title reign, etc. But I'm just putting it out on the ethos. What do you then have him do for the rest of the year? What's then the story for the rest of the year? You know, what does that mean? Where does it go from there? You know, because the chase is over 3 or 4 months into the final year, the chase is done. He's won the big one. So what happens there?
I don't necessarily agree with that one, to be honest. I think there's so much you can do with that last stretch. Whether he has the title or not, there are so many ways they can go with it. It's like we're going into Saturday with Cody. There's so many ways we could go with it. Like in terms of that offer with The Rock, it goes to someone else. It goes to Cody. You know, there's so many things you can do with Cena. There's so many people that he can face off against and have feuds with.
Yes. Point number 2 with that, there's one more match that Cena will want to have and the company will want him to have, which is one last Money in the Bank. He can't do that as champion.
I don't think they will want him in the Money in the Bank though.
I think they will.
They can have it, but the thing is, yes, it's great him being in the match, but he could have the championship and have a title match on the Money in the Bank pay-per-view.
I get that, but it's like similar to the Chamber when at the Rumble I was like, what does he do? They're going to want him in the Chamber. I think they're still going to want him in the Money in the Bank match. I think he's going to want to do everything. So I think the options are main event, but you're going to struggle to get him to lose. Logan Paul, because it is one of the most marketable matches they could possibly do. Whether you like it or not, it is it's wrestling's biggest star versus the YouTube and streaming megastar. That is an easily marketable match.
I agree, it's marketable, but if it's Cena's last Mania, it has to be a good match. It cannot be, like you said before, an Austin Theory Part 2.
I agree.
It can't be. It has to. I said this a few weeks back. With Cena's last Mania match, it has to be in someone's hands that will get a good match out of him. Because I think Cena's going to bring it. I don't think Cena's going to be lacking in any part of the equation. But you need his dance partner to be just as good.
Yeah.
And I would not be wanting to put that in Logan Paul's hands for his last Mania.
And the third option is we named 5 people in this 6-way ladder match for the IC title. And what's the one title he has never won?
Yeah.
And you have him complete the Grand Slam in the opening match of WrestleMania. You have him complete the Grand Slam.
Yeah.
I think those are your 3 options going into Mania.
I disagree that it's the only 3 options. I think there's a match with Drew that writes itself. I think there's a match with Drew. I think there's a match with Punk. I think there's a match with Seth. Just from the Elimination Chamber alone, if I looked at the rest of the roster, I could bring up 5 or 10 other names.
I just don't see the others happening in terms of, as you said, for Cena's last Mania. I think it has to be one of those 3 because there are, it's either the biggest match, the biggest marketable match worldwide, or you complete Cena's Grand Slam and you make him, finally be in that accolade. I think it's got to be memorable for one way or another. I think it's.
And I don't think Logan Paul is memorable for him. That's why. I'm not. Again, I know I have this thing with Logan Paul, but I'm not. The reason I'm saying it shouldn't be Logan Paul for Mania is because it's because of Cena's legacy. It's because of the fact that you have such a big moment to give somebody, and I know it would be a big thing for Logan Paul to beat Cena at Mania. It's a huge thing. I understand that. But you equally have to make sure that last match is a moment in of itself, and I don't think Logan Paul gives it that moment. I'm not saying it would be a good match. I'm just saying the overall story building and things like that, I don't see it. Again, they could book it and I could be like, I was totally wrong. And I'll put, if that's the case and they do it, I will put my hands up and say 100% incorrect on that one. But I cannot see, and maybe I'm blinded by pure unadulterated rage, but I just don't see how you can't put him in the main event of his last Mania.
No. I get it.
So when Damian Priest wins the Elimination Chamber, give us a call.
The only option that would annoy me.
I wouldn't. I like Damian Priest.
I like Damian Priest, but it's not the right match.
No, it's not the right match.
All of the others have. I could be convinced. That's the only one that wouldn't convince.
Logan, you could never convince.
Oh,
me,
actually,
Logan.
yeah. Logan also makes no sense. Yeah, okay.
You could not convince me, Logan, of a Mania event.
Sorry, I forgot for a moment that
I will never. Right. Well, on that jovial note, that will be it for our predictions. I did have... Actually, you know what? I do have an extra one.
Oh, no.
Just to add another point in for the equation, because I was like, we did have some extra ones for Rumble, and we didn't. There's not really much room for maneuver. Do we see Roman return?
Oh,
because I did have surprise return. Like, you had to pick a name to be a surprise return, and then we mentioned Randy both in the Sammy KO, so it's kind of taken that out. So surprise return, does Roman return on Saturday night?
No.
Ooh, I'm saying yes.
I was a yes until we ran through it all. And when I've run through it all and thinking of the entire show, I just think that there's a chance of overbooking it, where the simplicity of just having someone win the chamber.
I don't think he's in the chamber.
The Rock segment.
I think he's in the Rock segment, and early access for 2K25 is the following Friday.
Right, you mentioned that before, but you don't have that information, and then just immediately. No, I'm changing my answer.
No,
to yes.
you're not. You're not allowed. No.
You can't withhold valuable information. You can't.
You should know. You should know that.
No, you can't withhold valuable information.
No, you've made your statement. You said no.
There's a reason you told me to go first, so you can withhold that information.
Absolutely. It's called playing the game.
Absolutely outrageous.
Sir, I will remind you, who is your pick for the Women's Elimination Chamber?
And I was valid in that pick
because why did you go for that pick? What was part of the reasoning?
The reasoning is because
what was part of the reasoning?
The most sense.
Yes, she makes the most sense, yes. But also, who gave you that information prior? Exactly. So shut your mouth and know your role, boy.
It became the only option. What do you mean?
Anyway, so you said no, and I said yes. Look, if he doesn't come back, you get a point.
It's a good job I'll kick your ass at the rest of the show.
Yeah, you probably will, yeah. But that's not the point. But anyway, no was from you, yes was from me, and we shall see. And if Roman comes out in the very first second, I will be loving life. Anyway, that will be it for our Elimination Chamber predictions. That might have been my favourite moment of our entire time of recording this podcast. Absolute unadulterated rage from Bragster. Absolutely lost his mind. Oh, you love to see it. It's a good job your background's red, really. It matches the persona you've had this week.
I'm starting to blend in.
I know. Yeah, I know. I can see it. The heel turn is coming from Bragster very soon.
I will sell my soul. I'll tell you that for certain.
Yeah. Knock on the door. Rock. Anyway, yeah, so we'll leave it there for the predictions for this week. We'll obviously have a tally up for next week, and we'll be back to let you know how the predictions went, whether they went well or terribly for either of us. Maybe we both did terribly. Maybe there's some options we don't know about. We'll find out. And then I guess next week we start theorizing what the Mania card's going to be, and looking into the weeds for that. Yeah, what a time to be alive. Elimination Chamber on Saturday. What? I can't contain my excitement. And on that one, Bragster, is there anything else you'd like to leave us with or sign us off with before we go?
No, just simply, obviously, wherever you're listening to us now, make sure to like, share, subscribe, or follow. Also, down in the description, or you can find us on every social media platform. We're on Twitter/X. We're on Instagram. We're on TikTok. Make sure to follow us on all those different platforms. We're uploading regularly on every single one. Join the conversation. Join our community. And hopefully we'll grow it together.
Give us some predictions in the comments as well.
Yes.
Give us some predictions. Do you agree with Bragster? Do you think he's an umpty? I think the answer to that one may surprise you. So we'll leave it there, folks. Thanks very much for listening. Thanks for watching, following, subscribing, all that good stuff. And we'll see you for the Chamber Review next week.